Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of our bonus episodes with me, Julia Seal. These bonus episodes are designed to bring to life the concepts and coaching I've introduced in the podcast so far. They're an opportunity for us to dig deeper into a topic that might help you understand your happiness coaching better. They're an opportunity to merge ideas from the many disciplines that touch on happiness or success at work. And they're an opportunity for us to explore the insights we're discovering together. But really, these bonus episodes are mostly squirrel moments, some of mine and some of yours, my listeners. They will give you some insights into who I am and how I use these tools to coach myself. But mostly, I hope they'll help you to get to know your inner world better as we venture into topics that might spark a new idea or open a different door for you. If you have any ideas for topics you want me to explore, related and unrelated to Series 1, feel free to drop me a note either on our website or Facebook page, Happiness-Matters.coach. If this is the first time you're listening, we've just completed the coaching part of Series 1, the defining, assessing, and visioning phase of what is really getting in the way of your happiness. You're happy and successful at work, no matter what. You'll get plenty out of this episode today if you just start here, and you can go back and catch up, and also download the free coaching tools when you have more time. These Series 1 bonus episodes are going to look specifically at the influencers and shapers of your ideas and definitions on happiness, many of which you might not even be aware of. Today, we're starting off with something light and fun. We've worked intensely these last 12 episodes, and so I thought we'd look at a few things that will definitely add to our coaching together so far, but that don't require us to think quite so hard. We're going to be talking about my obsession with the yellow smiley face, that famous yellow smiley face that you see everywhere you go. And we're talking about how exploring this little quirk of mine will assist you in deepening your understanding of your own defining, assessing, and visioning journey. So my obsession. Well, you might have noticed that the color yellow and a yellow smiley face is threaded through much of my brand material. You might have noticed a bendy little yellow smiley man in some of my Instagram pictures. You might have noticed that I repost things about the Smile Foundation or about World Happiness Day, and horrors of horrors. For many of you professionals out there, you'll notice that I do use emojis quite a lot. I'm going to pull apart all these things in the next 3 episodes: the yellow smiley face, emoji communications, the color yellow, Mr. Happy, even the act of smiling, and explore how we can use what we learn here to help you on your self-coaching journey with me. And I will introduce you to Mr. Glubb, one of the inspirations for Happiness Matters. Let's start with the ubiquitous yellow smiley face that we all know so well. When you see it, what does it bring to mind for you? Does it make you smile along with it? Does it irritate you when you see it in an email? Do you notice it in shopping malls, or on t-shirts, or graffiti at your local train station? Actually, here's a thought. Do you even notice it at all? Where does this international icon for happiness come from? And why does knowing about this help you coach yourself? The yellow smiley face, known as Smiley, has quite a past. A bit like Mona Lisa and her famous smile. This is how journalist John Savage describes it in The Guardian. The smiley has traveled far from its early 1960s origins, changing like a constantly mutating virus, from early 70s fad to late 80s acid house culture, from millennial text option to serial killer signature and ubiquitous emoticon. That's quite a journey for a simple logo that began in kids' TV and corporate morale building. If you don't know John Savage's work, look him up. His latest book and feature film, Teenage, is interesting as a piece of cultural investigative reporting. He goes back into the prehistory of the word teenage, back all the way to 1875 until 1945, when it started to become an integral part of our culture. A good read when you're exploring how cultural influences have shaped you and your life today, especially if you have a teenager in the house. So back to Smiley's journey through all our cultures, back to the 1960s, when it seems to have first appeared in the United States. One source has Smiley making its first appearance as the logo for a children's TV program called The Funny Company, with the tagline, "Keep Smiling." And another has it as part of a promotion by New York radio station WMCA. But the most widely agreed origin, and according to the Smithsonian, attributes Smiley to Harvey Ball, a commercial artist and advertising man in Massachusetts. So in 1963, Harvey was commissioned by a local insurance company to create a friendship campaign. The aim of the campaign was to inspire its employees to feel good, to be more friendly to each other and to customers. Now, as an employee engagement consultant, this discovery is quite a fun fact for me. Harvey drew a perfect circle, filled it with bright sunny yellow, added 2 small oval eyes, the right larger than the left, and a big smile, an upside-down arc, the right side thicker, larger, and slightly off-center. You'll soon see why this detail is important. This simple childlike depiction of a happy face apparently took him just 10 minutes to do, and he was paid $45. Nowadays that's about $400. Perhaps Harvey was inspired by children's drawings or by the earliest known smiley face painted onto a Hittite pot found in Turkey and dating back to 1700 BC. Or perhaps he was inspired by the smiley face signature of Bernard Hennett, a Czech abbot, in 1741. We don't really know, but neither Harvey or the company who commissioned the campaign copyrighted Smiley, and that's where the fun begins. Or not. A few years later, 2 brothers from Philadelphia, Bernard and Murray Spain, came up with the classic smiley design to sell novelties, adding the words, "Have a nice day." The Spains did incredibly well. In 1972, for example, they sold 50 million smiley badges. And that wasn't it. Smiley exploded onto coffee mugs, tea trays, stationery, earrings, key rings, bumper stickers, anything. Smiley, as the feel-good symbol, had just become a huge fad. Of course, this idealism didn't last, and Smiley's childlike contentment became instead the subject of subversion. This might be what you associate Smiley with instead. Smiley appeared in a DC comic as Boss Smiley, the smiley-faced leader of an ultra-right-wing militia. It formed the backdrop design on the record cover of Talking Heads' Psycho Killer. It was worn as a badge by the evil comedian in the 2009 Watchmen movie, printed on T-shirts and posters as the icon of acid house, and more recently imprinted on the rave culture's ecstasy pills. So as John Savage says, Smiley flip-flopped from dream symbol to harbinger of wickedness. And this is still going on. There are 2 sides to Smiley's stories, positive and negative, depending on how you relate to how it has been used. Perhaps this illustrates in a completely different way the happiness-wisdom concept of life is 50-50, 50% positive and 50% negative, and our need to embrace both for our long-term happiness. You can listen to more about this happiness-wisdom concept in episode 1.4 to see what it might mean for your life, Smiley's journey through global popular culture has been mirrored by the copyright fighting that's been going on since the 1970s, when a French newspaperman used Smiley to highlight the good news stories in his publication and decided to register Smiley as a worldwide trademark. The Smiley World Company, under management by his son, is now a huge empire, one of the world's top licensing companies, and behind just about anything you see now that has Smiley printed on it. Walmart spent 10 years fighting this copyright in the USA for the right to use the smiley in their promotional material. And more recently, a Russian advertising company even tried to copyright some of the smiley emoticons that we use every day. In 1999, Harvey, sick of the commercialization of Smiley, started World Smile Day, and it's been running every year since then, on the first Friday of October. His wish is that all of us should devote one day each year to smiles and kind acts throughout the world. More recently, Harvey's son started the World Smile Foundation, which donates money to grassroots charitable efforts. They also have Smile ambassadors worldwide to spread goodwill. Jackie Chan, Brooke Shields, Prince Albert of Monaco, Jack Nicklaus and Phil Collins are just some of them. You and your company can also join in by signing up on their website. I will put all these links from Smiley's history for you in the podcast show notes on our site, Happiness-Matters.coach /podcast. So where does Smiley show up in your life? How about in Roger Hargreaves' books, his Mr. Men children's stories? Did you grow up with Mr. Happy, Mr. Grumpy, Little Miss Tidy, Mr. Cool, or Mr. Tickle? Mr. Happy looks a lot like Smiley, just with arms and legs, and he is the epitome of cheerful, kind, and joyful. His job is being happy, making others happy, and he also plays the marimba in Mr. Grumpy's band. Did you have smiley Lego people to play with long before the days of angry Lego faces? Do you like the Happiness Is cartoons? Launched in 2013, it's a series of cartoons based on what makes you happy. The creators currently have about 4 million followers on Facebook. Actually, I remember the Love Is series of cartoons better. My all-time favorites were Love Is, The Most Intense Happiness, and Love Is, Years of Happiness Ahead Together. Oh boy, talk about shaping my beliefs about love, happiness, and marriage. These cartoons were created in the 1960s by New Zealand cartoonist Kim Kasali. So where else does Smiley show up in your life today? And when you see it, what do you experience? What thoughts and emotions come up for you? Before we get into the relevance of all of this, let's just take a moment to consider the color yellow. And like Smiley, what this can uncover for us on our self-coaching journey. We tend to associate colors with emotions. As artist Pablo Picasso said, colors follow the changes of the emotions. I've really only dipped into the research on the actual effects that individual colors might have on us. For example, we see yellow faster than any other color on the road, even faster than the traditional fire engine red. But what I'm mostly interested in today is how we associate colors with emotions in our language and what this means for us in coaching ourselves. If you consider the color yellow, what do you think of? Is it the color of sunshine, hope, and happiness? What about remembrance, intellect, honor, and loyalty? Or even cowardice, egoism, madness, and deceit? Yellow is also the color of caution. And, just for interest, the sources of many yellow pigments to past artists were toxic: cadmium, lead, chrome, and urine. In the West, yellow was the color associated with the Pope in the early Christian church. It was also associated with Judas Iscariot, and more recently, Jews in Nazi-occupied Europe were forced to wear a yellow star to identify them. These are some of the uses and associated meanings of yellow in Western culture. Another example of the happiness-wisdom concept of life is 50-50. In fact, we could do an entire episode just on the meaning of the color yellow. But for now, here are some other cultural meanings. Yellow in India stands for knowledge and learning and is the color of spring. In China, yellow represented power, royalty, and prosperity in the Middle Kingdom, and apparently nowadays adult movies are referred to as yellow movies, not blue movies. In Thailand, yellow is the color for Mondays, again, so there are no blue Mondays. And in Japan, yellow often represents courage. In Iran, it's associated with sickness. And in Buddhism, it's the symbol of humility and separation from materialistic society. It symbolizes rootedness and renunciation. So interesting, isn't it? How do these meanings affect what you think when you see the color yellow? What thought does it spark? What emotion do you experience? How does thinking about yellow unearth what you think about happiness and how you pursue happiness? Can you see how your culture, the generation you were born into, and your exposure to mass media has shaped what yellow means to you now? Let's look more at the relevance of this. What does this rather whimsical exploration of mine have to do with your happiness and success at work? Firstly, as I've illustrated above, it's about becoming increasingly clear on where your influences about happiness come from. How aware are you of your beliefs, your automatic, this is the way things are thoughts? In episode 1.1 and 1.2, we examine how you define happiness and success, and we explore the sheer number of things around us through history and every day that go into shaping what we think about happiness and how we assess it for ourselves. So, how much of Smiley influences you on a daily basis? Does seeing it remind you to smile or to take a moment to think how lucky you are, like it does for me? Or does it remind you of rave parties or faked happiness? How is the meaning you make of it different to mine? Has me sharing some of the historic facts about its creation changed how you see or think about it? Do you still see it as a symbol of happiness, for example? Think about Watchman artist Dave Gibbons when he says as he explains the mystique of the smiley. It's just a yellow field with 3 marks on it. It couldn't be more simple. And so to that degree, it's empty. It's ready for meaning. If you put it in a nursery setting, it fits in well. If you take it and put it on a riot policeman's gas mask, then it becomes something completely different. And herein lies another idea towards your self-coaching. If Smiley is just a simple yellow circle with 3 marks in it, you've made it mean one thing up until today. What else could you make it mean? How could you reframe it? After today's conversation, what else could you think or feel when you see the famous yellow face or the color yellow? This leads me to the second reason we're talking about Smiley's relevance to your happiness and success. It's about learning to use triggers or reminders to keep you on your self-coaching path. So you could use Smiley, or even the color yellow, as a red flag guidance system, the way I do. Let me explain this a little more. You can also go back to episode 1.6 for the full story of the great white shark warning flags and how to use this in coaching. Every time I see yellow when I'm out in the world, I have created a habit for myself to think purposefully and intentionally about happiness and my own happiness, something that I'm happy about or grateful for. So I might see a girder painted yellow on a building construction site, or someone pulling a yellow suitcase through the airport, and it reminds me to take a moment to appreciate where I am. I might see a smiley face sticker on a child's backpack in the queue, and it reminds me to smile at the teller and connect a little more than I would if I was just going through my day automatically. All of these little yellow flags are small reminders to bring positivity into my day, not in a fake way, but really just to turn my thought patterns from where they tend to go automatically, which is typical of our human brain. It goes to survival concerns, fears, and doubts. So to turn towards something that has a more positive impact on my physical and emotional state and on the social connections and relationships around me. These examples are small but powerful coaching tips that you can use to shift your thoughts and ultimately the direction of your day. Also, these tiny reminders are actually how new habits are built, and how we overcome our survival brain instincts that tend to focus us always on what's wrong with the situation. All of that's in Series 2. These examples might also show you how to bring some light relief to your immediate stuckness, another perspective perhaps, a view into another world, a glimpse of what's possible for you by the end of your coaching journey with me. Here's another example of thinking on purpose and with intention, and using smiley or yellow to help me coach myself. As I'm preparing this podcast, I have things around me to keep my intention on happiness matters, to keep my brain focused on the thought patterns I want to strengthen and the emotions I want to be feeling when I talk to you. I am writing notes into a yellow moleskin notepad. I am writing with a yellow Lamy fountain pen, and the water bottle next to me is also yellow. On a hook behind me, I have 2 book bags. One is a collage print of Mr. Men characters, and the other is one I found in Heathrow Airport over Christmas, a gorgeous quilted yellow smiley face by British designer Anya Hinmarch. And I have a bendy plastic figure, the star of our Instagram feed, propped up on the windowsill. It might sound odd, but these are all small reminders every day to purposefully and intentionally choose how I'm shaping my day, and many of them originate from way back in my childhood. My late father was an amateur radio enthusiast, a radio ham, and his handle was Mr. Glub. Now, Mr. Glub was my childhood nickname for him, and it became his identity on the airwaves. One of my early sewing projects was to make him a floppy blue and white Mr. Glub soft toy. And then when I was 10, in the craze for tiny ornaments in old printers' trays, my mother and I made him a Mr. Glub pottery figure that stands in my office today, along with his Morse code transmitter. You'll meet Mr. Glub occasionally, as he provides much of the inspiration to this work. My father spent the bulk of his life persuading big international corporations that he worked for in Africa to invest in training their unskilled workers, to provide them with medical care, housing, and schools. Now you might understand why I'm drawn to work in employee engagement and coaching, and why I am so passionate in sharing with you how to coach yourself to happiness and success at work. As a complete squirrel moment, for those of you who've been following the podcast since episode 0, one of the schools he helped set up, Sisekelo in Big Bend, Swaziland, had its own amateur radio club, and with my father managed to speak to the International Space Station. So you can also see why I'm obsessed with all things moon, space, and stars, and get on so well with my stepson Thomas. We have a huge Apollo 11 Lego rocket in the kitchen to celebrate this year's 50th anniversary of the moon landing, the year I was born, and the next phase of space travel that Thomas has his eye on. Thomas, by the way, being a fan and background contributor to our Happiness Matters podcast, does not like the color yellow. So the other purpose of sharing all of this with you, other than for my fun, and because today is my father's birthday, is to show you how I have connected various influences in my life, connected them together to create meaning for me, from memories of my father, being a stepmother, and spending my weekends creating this Happiness Matters podcast. Can you see how I've used the Snakes and Ladders game board of life to connect all these aspects of my life? The Snakes and Ladders game board is the coaching tool from episode 1.3. I created this tool to uncover your deeper, more entrenched views of happiness and success, your actual inner belief system, the collection of thoughts that govern how you look at happiness for yourself. It's a simple 6-step process for you to follow on the free worksheet, where you get to map all the major milestones of your life and review how you define them as things that either helped you, the ladders, or hindered you, the snakes or shoots if you're in North America. Excuse me. Then, can you see how I've used the coaching tool of reframing as I shared stories from my life in terms of what makes up the happiness cues in my life? Episode 1.5 introduces you to the tool of reframing, and the following Q&A episode looks at reframing in more detail. Here I use examples about reframing your coaching journey as a hero's journey, like Odysseus or Harry Potter, or reframing the obstacles to your happiness at work as your stepping stones, or even as your strategies and how to move forward. Remember, you can download these free coaching tools from our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. You can also listen to these podcast episodes directly on the site, or even better, subscribe to them in your podcast player. Then they automatically update every Tuesday as we release a new episode. This has been a fun episode for me, and I hope for you too. If you like what you've heard today and want to work with me directly, please join our Facebook coaching group at Happiness-Matters.coach. There really is no better time to do this work together. Next, we're going to take our exploration of the yellow smiley face and its influence on our belief systems a step sideways. We'll look at how we've integrated smiley into our highly connected world, communicating through emojis and emoticons, the language of smileys, and what we can actually learn about ourselves for our self-coaching journey. So bye for now. It's now late at night. Yeti and Lupin, my two giant schnauzers, asleep in front of the fire. Thank you for joining me today on my father's birthday to honor his memory. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.